Je voudrais vous souhaiter la bienvenue.
I wish to welcome you back, colleagues, to the second half of the Legal and Constitutional Affairs meeting of the Senate of Canada. We are continuing our consideration of Bill C-15, an act to amend the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act and to make related and consequential amendments to other acts.
Our Chief Superintendent Pierre Perron, Director General, Criminal Intelligence. He will shortly be, and there he is, he will be also accompanied by Mr. Superintendent Bill Malone, Director, Organized Crime, and we are also joined by a representative from the Ottawa Police Service. We have Deputy Chief Sue O'Sullivan and Inspector Jill Skinner. They are here to help give us their perspective of the law enforcement of that future bill. Welcome. You are, I presume you have opening statement. And have you decided amongst yourself who will start and who will finish? Superintendent Perron, c'est vous qui commencez.
Thank you, Mr.
Vous avez
Chair.
la parole.
Superintendent Perron, are you the one starting? Yes.
In Canada, I will be referring to the most recent information and intelligence gathered for the 2008 Canada Drug Situation Report, which is currently being finalized and translated for public distribution later this year. We must keep in mind that although we are discussing the drug situation in the country, the reality is that organized crime is behind the drug trade. One cannot be talked about without addressing the other. We believe knowledge and foresight are at the heart of any effective strategy to combat organized crime. Criminal intelligence is needed to accurately assess the threats and investigate key groups on a priority basis. The RCMP recognizes this necessity, and it adopted an intelligence-led approach several years ago. Through strategic and tactical criminal intelligence work, the RCMP, with other Canadian police services, has been assessing the growing threats posed by organized crime. Les tendances observées ces dernières années au pays continuent d'évoluer.
The trends that we have seen in Canada over the past several years continue to evolve. Despite the continued efforts of Canadian law enforcement agencies, the illicit drug trade remains deeply entrenched in this country. Canada remains one of the primary global source countries for MDMA/ecstasy and methamphetamine. Trafficking activity linked to the Canadian trade of these synthetic drugs at both the national and global levels continues to pose significant threats, prompting the RCMP to designate synthetic drug production and trafficking as national priorities. Cannabis is still the top domestically produced drug in Canada, comprising approximately 75% of all drugs seized in 2008. Cocaine also continues to be one of the most commonly trafficked drugs in Canada. Drug trafficking continues to be a highly lucrative activity. Of course, where there's money, there's organized crime, and drug trafficking generates more money for organized crime than any other form of commodity trafficking. In 2008, the total street value of drugs seized by Canadian law enforcement amounted to over $2.4 billion. Between 2006 and 2008, law enforcement efforts prevented the equivalent of more than $7.3 billion in drugs from becoming available to users. The RCMP continues to fully enforce the law against the production and distribution of marijuana in Canada. Consistent high demand for the drug, combined with its relatively simple production process and profitability, have secured the drug's top position in the illicit market in Canada. The high demand for marijuana in the U.S. also helps fuel Canadian production. Though certain criminal groups have specialized in specific aspects of the trade, they continue to collaborate, establishing sophisticated marijuana trafficking networks, which move the drug from production to the streets. Marijuana continues to be traded with or in exchange for other commodities such as cocaine, ecstasy, illegal tobacco, and proceeds of crime. Ecstasy and MDMA remain two of the most widely available and in-demand drugs in the Canadian illicit synthetic drug market. In the last decade, organized crime involvement in this drug trade is the single most determining factor in the transformation from a relatively flat market into a multidimensional, booming industry. In 2008, it was estimated that 99% of meth and 99% of powder and tablets sold as ecstasy in Canada were produced here. The number of clandestine drug labs seized in 2008 has remained relatively stable in comparison with 2007 figures, though there appears to be an increase in laboratories that produce more than one type of illicit drug in the same facility, and their output capacity has reached new heights. Canadian-produced ecstasy is supplying the Asia-Pacific market. The primary foreign destination is Australia, where several large shipments have been seized in-country or intercepted en route by CBSA or other authorities. Crime networks are learning from their successes in the global ecstasy trade, applying this knowledge to a large-scale MDMA production, precursor chemical smuggling, and global trafficking. They have become largely responsible for the burgeoning meth trade in recent years, taking advantage of the growing demand for meth in the Asia-Pacific region. Cocaine continues to be one of the most commonly trafficked and distributed drugs in Canada. The majority of Canadian-based criminal organizations involved in drug trafficking are implicated to some degree in the cocaine trade. These groups are internationally connected, which facilitates the importation of cocaine shipments not only into Canada, but also into other foreign countries. The U.S. is the primary transit country for cocaine smuggled into this country, most commonly through land border crossings using commercial transport. Mexico continues to play a prominent role in the supply of cocaine destined for Canada, as the majority of cocaine in the U.S. transits Mexico via the Central American corridor.
Synthetic drugs, cocaine, and cannabis remain criminal markets dominated by organized crime. The transnational nature of illicit drug activities continues to require intelligence assessment and the strengthening of domestic international partnership. I will now hand over to Superintendent Bill Malone to discuss organized crime, transnational nature of organized crime, and drug trade as shown in recent enforcement operations.